Hey, welcome back to the Breakthrough Creative. I am John. I'm your host, and this is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. If you were here for last week's episode, you got to see or hear an interview with Carlos Huante, creature designer. Awesome guy, awesome stuff. And I'm doing this whole block of effects people for October for the Halloween season because I have such a love for visual effects and special effects makeup, and that was my background. And I'm hoping that you're enjoying it so far. Go check out Carlos if you haven't yet. Today's guest is just as cool a guy, really amazing, all the work that he has done and how outgoing and gregarious, and he's just full of really good information and stories surrounding being a professional artist. Ted Haynes is known as the Foam Fabber. He is a foam fabrication costume specialist. It's not all he does, but it's kind of how he's made his way in the effects world. And you'll hear that and more in just a moment. Ted has worked for John Beekler. If any of you guys go way back into the 80s, he's worked for John Vulich. He's worked for KNB and for Legacy Effects, which before it was Legacy was Stan Winston Studios. He's worked on the Avengers movies, on all kinds of commercials, like GEICO commercials on characters I know that you've seen. He's been a green screen guy and been involved in puppeting and all kinds of cool stuff. And he's just got a really great story and a great journey to hear about. So let's hear what Ted has to say about being a foam fabber. Haynes. Hey, Ted, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Thanks, dude. Look at all your stuff. I love all that. And I gathered from our conversation yesterday that you were hard at work on Frank's hair last night.
It's painstaking. I haven't done a lot of hair punching. All the hair is punched in. I'm not going to say one at a time because this is so big and broad that there's, in every little puncture here, there's like 5 hairs or, it's like stab, 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 and getting the hair in there. So yeah, I wanted to have him sitting next to me, but I didn't necessarily want him bald. So
he's so awesome. Tell us about what it is that you do. What do you do?
I've been in the film industry for a long time, about 32 years, and I stumbled into the under the headline of foam fabricator. So that was basically my job description, was a foam fabricator, and that's basically doing muscle suits, fat suits, creature costumes, creature suits, like low budget creature suits, all out of foam. Whether it be like so many cosplayers these days use EVA foam. It's a closed cell foam, and that's what they're making armor out of and things like that. So I started using that stuff, about 30 years ago. And upholstery foam, like the things that you guys can see on camera here, the Yoda and the Mandalorian Mutant, the Frankenstein, all that stuff. So it's just upholstery foam. It's all squishy and soft, coated with latex rubber. But this was like a way of building creatures going back 50 years, like for the Star Trek TV show, the original series, or Lost in Space, or, any of those type of old TV shows where they were monster of the week, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. It was all foam fabricated, like those early 50s films. Well, like the Metaluna Mutant back here, so that was the early way that guys would do this stuff. It was cheap and it was really accessible, and it was latex rubber and cotton and upholstery foam. And, but that's what I started out doing when I was a kid as well, and stumbled into being a foam fabricator because when I was a kid in Wisconsin, I couldn't get all the clay to sculpt and do fiberglass molds and foam latex and all that sort of stuff. So it was easy to go to an upholstery shop and get some scraps and start fabricating, because there's so many, Starlog magazine and Fangoria and all that kind of stuff where they were showing you guys doing that. So it was like, oh, I guess I'll make it out of foam.
So how did you get interested in this stuff? Like, when did it hit you?
I was an artist early on. I mean, I always loved drawing and painting as a really little kid. My parents saw that I enjoyed, just drawing with a pencil and, start with crayons, but I was doing it differently than the other kids and all that. So, I mean, that started to just grow. And honestly, I got hit with the film bug probably about 9 years old when Star Wars came out. For so many people my age, right around, give or take a few years, if you were anywhere between 7 and 12 years old in 1977, exactly, guilty. Guilty. But I was 9 years old in 77 when Star Wars came out, and that was like, ooh, what's this? What's happening here? What's going on? And I was just fascinated by everything, though. It wasn't just monsters. It was the models. It was the costumes. It was the props. It was like, how were they doing that? And so I started collecting all the magazines even that early, 9, 10 years old. And I really thought as a kid, even for the first several years that I was really into this, I was going to be a model builder. I wanted to make X-Wing fighters. I wanted to make Death Star. I wanted to do green screen, or back then blue screen, visual effects and stuff. So I wanted to be a VFX person and build models. And then it was probably closer to around American Werewolf in London where I said, nope, makeup. And that's what hit me. It's like makeup effects. I really wanted to do makeup effects. And at that point, I was already doing like Super 8 films, like my own zombie movies and stuff. So whatever models I needed for my films, for my ghost or horror films or whatever, I was building models. I was doing the makeup effects, doing the creature effects, doing the costume work, writing, directing, doing all that kind of stuff, because it's a one-man band, and I had a few buddies that I was working with, when I was a kid, my buddy George, my friend Pete, and so and Dan, and there was like a good 4 or 5 of us that we wanted to make movies, and so I was always doing makeup. But I guess it was like I said, it was American Werewolf. It was Rick Baker. And then you start connecting those dots. It's like Rick Baker did American Werewolf. Oh, wait a minute. Rick Baker also did those masks I really loved in Star Wars. Oh, and Rick Baker also did this other thing like that. And you start to connect those dots. And then you start going, who's Dick Smith? I keep hearing Dick Smith. And then you go, and I started connecting those dots early, though. I mean, I was like 11 when I started connecting all those dots. So I knew, even when American Werewolf came out, I knew who Rick was. I knew who Dick Smith was, So all those dots had already been connected. But I guess, I don't know what it was about American Werewolf that just kind of slapped me and it's like, no, makeup is the route that you want to go. So, I mean, I came out to Los Angeles with the aspiration of like, I was going to be a makeup artist, prosthetic makeup artist. And I started that for a while. At the smaller shops, but the great thing is at the smaller shops you get to do everything. And at that time, everybody wants to be a makeup artist. Everybody wants to sculpt a makeup. Everybody wants to be Rick Baker and win an Academy Award. But I luckily, as a kid, when I was doing foam fabrication and building my own creature suits, I had those in my portfolio as well when I came out to LA. And so I remember putting that down in front of John Beekler, and he goes, "Oh, you're a foam fabricator." He goes, "There's only a couple of those in town. We could definitely use you." And I was like, "Cool, what's that?" I don't know what a foam fabricator is. He goes, "Oh, the way, what you're doing with the upholstery foam here, doing the creature suits and doing, all that. It's the way, John Chambers would have done that for Lost in Space, or that's what Rick Baker did for Octoman." And it's like, yeah, I know, but is that really the way you guys still do stuff? For low budget, we do. So, and I almost instantly I was like a foam fabber, but still trying to like do makeup. And I think it's not that I gave up on makeup. It's just like that's what people wanted me to do because I was fast at it, I was good at it, and that's the road I took then, was foam fabricator.
So was it pretty I mean, I don't want to say simple, because that doesn't honor the work and the skill that you have, but it sounds like you got out there and you got hired right away.
I did.
Yeah.
And it's really weird because a lot of people, I've met a lot of people that have come out here and tried to do this, and they're out here for 3 years, 4 years, whatever, and all of a sudden they're gone. They disappear. because they moved back home and for whatever reason it didn't work out. Sometimes it's a skill set. You know, people don't have the skill set to stay in. And luckily, I'd been doing this for so long, I knew how to make molds. I knew how to sculpt. I knew how to do light mechanics. I obviously knew how to do foam fabrication. I could do makeup because I had already taught myself how to lay crepe wool beards and how to apply makeup. And, you know, so I had a really good skill set, and then I just needed to hone that. So everybody I met in the industry, what you do if you're smart, you just sit there and look over everybody's shoulder. It's like, how's he making that mold? Or, you know, and just ask. It's like, why are you using that tool instead of this? Or, you know, oh, you got your mold so smooth. How did you do that? Or, so if you keep those skill sets, and it's a really broad set of skills, you're going to keep working. If you're very narrow focused in this business, either you're going to have to be an exceptional mechanic, an exceptional makeup artist, an exceptional sculptor, that everybody wants to hire you to do that one exceptional thing. And I mean, my thing was the foam fabrication. Luckily, I know all of the other avenues as well, you know, the molding. So my exception is foam fabrication. That's my forte. But I also know I can go in the mold shop. I can do some light mechanics. I can draw. I can design. So in the smaller shops, they kept me around because I could do everything.
Well, I suspect as well, you're, you know, we spent about 20 minutes talking before we even started recording, and you're a highly relational guy. You're easy to talk to. You're optimistic. You know, there's just a lot of things about you relationally that are cool. And it's not easy to work with people who are not relationally mature. Or
I was a wide-eyed kid when I came out here. I was just, you know, so when I was a kid, you know, and I'm like 19, 20, 21 years old and I'm working in the industry, I kind of knew when to shut up. Now I don't. I talk all the time. With my wife, I said, John wants to do a podcast with. She was great. You can talk to him for 2 hours. Shut up for a little bit. But no, when I was a kid, I was just like, I stayed quiet and I did my work and I looked over people's shoulders, and I mean, that's how I stayed in, I think. And I don't think I was ever like, you know, that jerky kid. Otherwise I would have never been hired, you know.
Yeah. Did anyone in particular take you under their wing?
I mean, I guess I have to credit John Beekler to an extent. And I mean, he was my first job working for John at MMI. And I mean, not as like a, you know, here, you're going to be my apprentice and sit right here and do what I do and anything like that. But John was the first one to recognize the skill. And I mean, so many great people worked for John over the years. I mean, like Howard Berger worked for John, Mitch Devane, who's an amazing sculptor, Glenn Hans, and just so many, you know, Wayne Toth and Tim Ralston, all the, you know, mechanics, and, you know, some really great people, and then went on to do huge things. So, I mean, John recognized, you know, he was doing super, super, super low budget film, and he would recognize, oh, that kid's got talent. That kid's got talent. And he was pulling us into his shop when we were 18, 19 years old, you know, but he just recognized that kid's got some talent, so I'm going to pull him in, you know, and everybody left relatively quickly after that, because if you had talent, Greg Canham would hire you, K&B would hire you, Stan Winston would hire you, Rick would hire you, and John would be like, damn it, I can't pay more than $250 a week to you guys, you know, because that's how I started out at John Beekler's shop for $250 a week. And that's 24/7. That's salary. That's not like an hourly. That's like, I'm going to pay you $250 a week for 7 days, 24 hours a day servitude. So, and when you're 19, you don't care.
Yeah. When you're 19, you don't care. You're just happy to be in there and be in the midst of it all, right?
Right. I mean, I just, you know, I moved here to LA from Wisconsin. I didn't have a girlfriend, wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I didn't have distractions around me. And it's like, I was here to build creatures and monsters and work in the film industry. And so I had an extremely narrow focus. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were at John Beekler's then for a period of time. And how did your career grow?
I think I spent about 3 years, honestly, at John Beekler's shop, right in about there. And then, but I had met so many different guys, and one of them being Mike Deak. And Deak had already been around for quite a while. He had worked with John Beekler for quite a while, and a bunch of the other shops, and knew all these other guys. And then he got hired by Charlie Ban of Full Moon. So you know, again, still low budget and all that, but he got hired by Charlie to head up a makeup effects company or creature company that would do those effects for his films only, and that was called Alchemy Effects. So Mike headed it up, and then he just started bringing in all of the guys that he had worked with over the years. So it was me, it was Wayne Toth, Tim Ralston, and a lot of new, younger guys too. But he would bring in people like Mitch Devane and you know, Glenn, and you know, and we were all working for that. And then I got the opportunity to go to Romania twice because everything was shot in Romania. Charlie shot stuff here for a long time, Full Moon, and first it was Empire Pictures, and then Empire ended, and then Full Moon started. And so we shot everything here in warehouses around Los Angeles. But then Charlie struck a deal with Romania because it was after their fall of communism. They had their revolution, and their dictator president, you know, Ceausescu was out, and they started opening up the country. And we were there 1 year after their revolution, and they just loved having us Americans come, and we were using their studios right outside of Bucharest, and shot. What did we shoot? The first ones we went and did was it's called Mandroid. So we did Mandroid, and then we shot that one film, and then I went back about 6 months later and did two films. I did Trancers 4 and 5, and I was there for like 4 or 5 months, I think, something like that, in Romania. And so that was for Alchemy Effects.
So what were you doing out there on their stages and sets?
Everything. So I mean, I was a foam fabricator still with Mike Deak, building creature suits. So I built creature suits, but I would do a lot of gags too. You know, blood gags, arms being hacked off, heads being hacked off, you know, bodies blowing up, mechanical gags, so like, you know, large creature hands, you know, things like that. So, you know, I was doing everything. You work in a small shop like that, like I said, you get to do everything. You get to sculpt, you get to mold.
So it wasn't like you were building all the stuff stateside and then going over to Europe. You were,
we did. We built everything. It was in Burbank, I think. Okay. We built at Alchemy Effects, and everything got boxed up and shipped.
Okay.
And then unpacked, and we were staying at a castle in Bucharest, and everything went to set. So it was already built, but then, and I was there with a crew. The first time we went, crew of 3 people. It's myself, Jake McKinnon, Melanie Tooker. Melanie was taking care of makeup. Jake was actually in a suit. And then I was kind of like his babysitter. You know, I'd help get him dressed up, and I would take care of him when he was in the suit. But then all the other little extra gags, when Jake wasn't in a suit, he would be doing those gags as well. Because we built a lot of props, a lot of little wires and lights and LEDs and mechanical props, you know, like little mechanical arms that would reach out and do things. So, you know, we did it all while we were there, you know, and we would assist with a little bit of makeup. And then the second time I went, during Trancers 4 and 5, I was working with a guy, Joe Podner, and he was specifically the makeup effects artist. And then I assisted him, but then did all of the peripheral gags. So any creature suit, any special effects type gag, again, you know, like people being shot with arrows. You know, I was doing makeup effects as well, but it just everything. You know, and then the director too would just come up with stuff too. It's like, hey, Ted, tomorrow I was thinking, or, you know, he'd ask me, it's like, we're going to have this scene in the woods and all these guys are going to get taken out, you know, like all these traps. And I said, kind of like Predator, kind of like First Blood. And he goes, yeah, come up with some cool gags that we can do like next week. And I would sit there and design gags, and like people getting hit with big logs coming out of the tree, or, you know, tiger trap type sticks. And, you know,
so would you design them and storyboard them?
I went boredom. But I mean, there it was just guerrilla warfare filmmaking.
Yeah.
So I would just design the gag and show our director as David Nutter, who was the director on that. And I would show him, it's like, here's this gag. What do you think? That's great. Let's do it. You know, so,
Yeah.
you know, they would figure it out. And it's just like, okay, we've got this gag set up and the guy's going to fly forward and it's going to look like he's stuck on these sharpened sticks. And, you know, so that was 4 months of doing that fun stuff.
So it
Well,
seems very natural for you to be useful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things too, where you just, you know, well, there's a hammer and there's a drill and there's a block of foam and let's see, what else can I get? And I'm going to start banging away on this. And because you know, when I'm on set, and I love being on set, and it is that sort of thing. It's like, what's in your kit? You know, it's like all of a sudden this creature that you built this creature suit, but now he's got to pick up this thing. But he's got arm extensions on. He doesn't really have fingers that move. And how do we get him to pick something? It's like, okay, well, I got some baling wire and I got some aluminum strapping and I've got my drill and I've got some bolts and nuts and we'll just make it work. I'm going to work through lunch and we're going to figure out how to make that work. So it's having that ingenuity too. And I mean, like I said, some of these people that move out here and then go away sometimes don't have that ingenuity because working in the shop is really different than working on set. You know, it's like, it's one thing to sit at a table all day long and you get to tinker with whatever you're doing. You know, you're doing your sculpture, you're putting something together, you're doing mechanics. But then when you get the set and it's like, you know, now we need this now. You know, the director's waiting, the first AD is waiting, you know, you have a crew of 40 people that are waiting on you sometimes, you know, and it's like, or your thing broke. You know, you've got this jaw mechanism that you're doing back and forth, some creatures like that, and all of a sudden jaw just goes ding and stays up. And it's like, it's not, hey, the jaw's not moving. Ted, the jaw's not moving. It's like, cut. And then you're like up inside of this thing trying to reconnect some cable that broke or, you know, but having that ingenuity and the engineering, and it's just being able to rig something on the fly. You know, it's one thing that you get 2 months to build something in a shop, but you might get 20 seconds to fix it. And it's like, how do I fix this? You know,
Do you like that pressure?
Oh yeah, I love it. I love being on set with that kind of stuff and just figuring it out. And it in some ways it's gotten easier because of some of the digital aspect of commercial making and filmmaking, where we used to have to rely so heavily on the internal, you know, mechanics and all that stuff. But now you can do it externally, where you can just be in a green screen suit with some green covered rods, you know, they're connected to the head of a creature and the arm of a creature. And I'm just standing there. And more these days, the VFX guys go, as long as you're not crossing the rods or you're not behind the puppet, you don't even have to put on a green screen suit.
Wow,
you know,
that's amazing.
We can stand there and do that. And they said, oh, we're going to do a plate shot anyhow. And you're not even next to the, you know, you're enough to the side of the creature. Don't worry about it. You don't have to get into a green screen suit. You know, which I love because, you know, who loves getting into a skin tight green screen or blue screen suit? It's like, not this guy. I worked on Goosebumps a few years ago, Goosebumps 2. And I did a lot of I was the guy that for whatever reason, they kept, you know, Ted, get in the blue screen suit. And so I would be standing there in the middle of a room, you know, with a rod on Slappy's, you know, hand or his head. And, you know, but I was always the guy standing there in like full skin tight leotard, you know, with my blue hood on and my blue gloves. And it's like, aren't I past this point in my career? Why am I the guy in the... But, you know, I got a kick out of it. It's fun.
I think that's why you were called on to do it, is because you enjoy it and you'll put the suit on. A lot of people don't want to be in that unflattering of an outfit. You're a slim dude, so you're good.
There's a lot of times where I was just like, you know, it's almost like Superman, where it's like, Ted, I think we're going to need you in the blues. And it'd be like, hold on. And it's like, I had everything on underneath. We go. I could just stand in the middle of set and drop my pants and take my shirt. It's like, I've got my blue suit on.
No phone booth required.
No.
So tell me about like the kind of the next leg of your career, because you obviously started to work on bigger productions. And
yeah, after Alchemy, you know, there's Beekler's, Alchemy, and they were kind of low budget. And I got that call, as everybody does. It's like you're always stepping up a little bit. You're always stepping forward. And, you know, if you're doing things right, you're stepping forward. But I got a call, or a friend of mine, Mike Deacon, got a call and said, "Hey, you got a foam Fabber over there that, you know, we need some help." And it was Howard Berger from K&B. He said, "We're working on this film called Wyatt Earp, Kevin Costner film." And that was a huge step up for me, you know. And then, so I went to K&B for what Howard told me was 2 weeks. We need you for 2 weeks. We got to work on this dead deer, and maybe you can help us with these buffalo. And it was like, great. 5 years later, you know, everything is always 2 weeks. You're always getting hired for 2 weeks. And I think that's just kind of a probationary type thing that guys tell you. It's like, well, we only need somebody for 2 weeks. And, you know, Beekler needed somebody for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I was there for 3 years. But yeah, Howard said 2 weeks, and I was there for 5 years. But started on Wyatt Earp, and we did, oh boy, just so many. K&B was crazy just because we did so much work. There are films to this day that I can be watching late at night, and the credits are rolling. And it's like, I worked on that. It's like, I did not know I worked on that. Some makeup effect gag or something. Maybe I didn't take it to set. Somebody else took it to set. But I mean, we were working on Chicago Hope and ER and the TV show Picket Fences, Ally McBeal. But, you know, we also did Pulp Fiction. I worked on that. I worked on From Dusk Till Dawn. You know, started with Wyatt Earp, Village of the Damned. So many films I did with those. Spawn, you know, not that Spawn's this huge, great film, but, you know, Spawn.
So I got 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can be as detailed about this one, because I'm going to ask you about, you know, pay, because you shared, you know, your $250 a week with Beekler. I don't know if that changed as you went, but, you know, as you're stepping up, I'm assuming that your income is stepping up. Was that something where did you negotiate with K&B what you were going to earn on that project, that first project?
That's something, when going from shop to shop, everybody does it. They ask for that little raise. So, you know, I started out with John at $250. I think I bumped up to around $300 a week by the time I left John. I know at one point when I was still working for John Beekler, I started working for another company called Optic Nerve, and they would bring me in a little bit here and there. And they were literally like the 2-week shop. It's like, we just need somebody for 2 weeks. We got this small little thing. And I went in and started sculpting for them and making molds. We were doing these old age appliances for a music video, and we hadn't negotiated rate at all. And I was so young, I just didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to ask for more money. You know, it was, for me as a kid, it was hard to ask my parents for $2 for a model kit or for movie ticket price. You know, it's like, could I have $1 for, you know, that type of thing. So I just didn't know how to do that stuff. And nobody does. Nobody's good at doing that when they're young. You know, am I worth more money? I don't know. You know, what do I charge for something like this? I don't know. You know, and you have to figure that out, especially when you're a kid. That's hard. But luckily, when I went to Optic Nerve, and I'd only been making $300 a week from John Beekler, I was working for John Vulich at Optic Nerve. We hadn't talked salary at all. I was down to $0 in my checking account. Didn't have enough gas in my car to get back home. And I had to borrow $5 from John Vulich. And I said, you know, could I borrow $5? I need gas for my car. And I hadn't eaten in like 2 weeks. I was living off of saltines and peanut butter. That's what I had left, because I was down to $0. And I was super, super close to moving back home to Wisconsin. I just didn't know. And I hadn't worked in 2.5 months, something like that. So John Vulich said, well, don't you have any money on you? No, I don't have any money on me. And he's like, do you have any money at all? And I was like, no, I don't have any money. He's like, dude, why didn't you tell me? And he was so mad at me for not telling him. How much are you making at Beekler's? And I said, $300 a week. He goes, that's bullshit. He goes, you're worth way more than that. He said, I'm giving you $500 a week. And he pulled out his wallet. He gave me $200. He wrote me a check. He said, be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're working for 2 weeks straight. This is how much money you're making from us. And I was like, oh, great, I could eat. So, you know, but, you know, I learned after that, I have to negotiate. I have to up my rate. So, I mean, even from him, when I went back to Beekler's, it was like, I'm $500 a week now. And Beekler was like, duh, like that. But he paid it. And then when I went to Alchemy Effects, Mike Deek gave me a raise, and I think I got up to around $700 a week. And again, that was all salary. That was 24/7. A lot of people didn't do hourly at that point, you know, because it just was
Do
like,
they do hourly now?
They do. Yeah. Most shops do hourly now. There's a couple of shops that do like a salary type thing. But yeah, most everybody's hourly now. You know, you negotiate your hourly rate if you're 25 or 35 or, you know, whatever you do. Some people are worth more than others just because of skill sets or whatever. But yeah, I worked my way up, and I know when I started at K&B, I had told Howard, because he asked me, they did hourly. It's the first shop I worked at that was hourly. And he put me on the spot when I walked in the building. He goes, what's your hourly? And I was trying to do math in my head, and it's like, dude, I make monsters. I don't do math. And I was like, and I can't remember what I spit out at him, what my hourly would be. And I remember getting home that night and starting to do the math and going, oh crap, I think I'm going to end up making $150 less per week than what I'd been making at Alchemy. And I had to go in the next day and go, hey, Howard, I think I told you the wrong rate yesterday. He goes, I thought that was kind of cheap. Like I said, I was making $700 a week at Alchemy. And he goes, you were doing $700? And I said, yeah. I said, call Mike. That's what I was making. And he goes, no, that's cool. You're fine at $700. Don't worry about it. So, you know, and I think it was at that moment that, you know, I kind of learned I need to speak up. I need to fend for myself. Yeah. It's like, you know, this is what I'm making at the last shop, and I can't make less now. You know, so, you know, even though some shops, when you move from shop to shop, it's like, oh, I can't pay that. I can only pay you this, or, you know, it happens. So, yeah. But I never really ran into that. And every time I went to a different shop, I popped up my rate. And every now and again, I'd ask for a raise, you know, because it's like, okay, well, I've been here for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We're working on bigger films. I'm gaining more experience. And then you start to learn. Well, so-and-so just asked for a raise and he got it. And that person just asked for a raise and they got it. And it's like, oh, I guess I have to ask for more money. And I would. I'd go to Greg Nicotero, knock on his door, and, hey, Greg, you know, been with you guys a couple of years, just wondering, you know, could I get an extra $100 a week or something like that? Yeah, how much you making and this and that? And it's like, yeah, that's cool, that's good. And sometimes it's $50 a week or like that. But it's that whole thing of like you have to determine your own worth, and then you have to ask for it. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. I've been surprised on a couple occasions when you ask for a $50 raise, they say, no, you should be, I'm going to give you $100 more a week or something like that. You know,
that's cool. That's very cool. And it's, I mean, on both sides of it, you know, I often wonder, is somebody making that much money that they'd rather just give me more and make me happy, which is good, because I'm right. All for a win-win. But, you know, years ago, I remember, I'll probably edit this out. We're just chatting. But I was at 35 an hour with my clients, and I was fast and I was good, and I answered the bell, and I'm like, I'm losing money because I'm charging hourly. And they, this one lady who, again, I had a great relationship with so many of these people at this one company, she called me up and she needed me to do some illustration. She said, you're the only one that we know who could do this style locally. And we were in a rush. And I had so much work, like I was up to here already, and I thought, I can't do it. And I said, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'd love to do it. I hate turning down work. I was so insecure that they'd find somebody who could do what I did, and I'd never work again. And so they called back again, and I said, I can't. I'm sorry. I feel you. I can't do it. And then they called me back a third time, and they said, you have to do it. And I said, give me a minute. And I called her back, and I thought this would be like a $1,300 job. And I'm tired of it. It would be a $1,300 job if I charged hourly. So I thought, what would I be happy with? So I said $2,800. And she said, okay. And I was like, whoa, I'm not charging per hour anymore. I'm going to go by the project. And that's when I noticed I started to make real money.
I just had this conversation with a buddy that came over yesterday. He's a storyboard artist. And he goes, okay, this is going to take me an hour. This is how much I charge per hour. You know, I think he charges $50 an hour. And they said they had $100.
So cheap.
It is. And I told him, I said, how are you only charging $50 an hour? And he's just a brilliant artist. I mean, he adds so much more to his storyboards, where I see some guys board stuff and it's like, blah, 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 but he's depth and background and character and all this stuff. And he's still as fast as anybody else. And, but he said, yeah, he said, you know, I charged them $50 an hour. I did $2, they had $100. So I did 2 hours worth of work for them. And they came back and said, oh, that's great. We love it. Could you change this one little thing here? Okay, that's going to take me a couple minutes. And he looked and he said, okay, that's 5 minutes. Then they asked for something else. It was another 10 minutes. And he said, by the time I got done, it was another hour's worth of work. He said, okay, I have to charge you. Oh, but we just wanted a few changes. Yes, those few changes added up to another hour. That's another $50. You know, like that. And people don't get it. They just don't get it.
Do you think it's that they really don't get it, or do you think it's a mixture of that and cutthroat? Or I have my own thought, but I'm curious.
It's a mixture. I don't necessarily think people are inherently evil, that they're trying to rob you blind. But in this industry and not just the film industry, just the industry of having people do art for you or working for you. They're hiring you, they're hiring me. They have to get the biggest bang for their buck. They have to stretch that dollar as far as it'll go, because they have to make money too. You know, and it's always been my problem with this chunk of the industry. It's like, I have seen films go from like 4 producers to 20 producers. It's like, I've only met 2 producers on this film. Where are the other 18? And what are they doing? And what warrants their, oh no, we're giving them so many millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars and stuff like that. And it's like, for what? Because they've got a name on the film like that. And it's like, why don't you guys give us an extra $20,000, $30,000 and we can actually pay for some better overtime, or we can get these materials, or we could give you some more effects or gags, instead of having these other people that are just sitting behind a desk who have no clue that this film is even being made, other than the fact they get a check going, oh, look at that, I worked on another film. Associate producer. You know, it's just like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Thanks for that. I appreciate us being able to go down that rabbit trail. That was a good one, because I just think there's so many artists who they just don't know. And I think we're kind of, I think generally we're spoon-fed what we're going to earn from a young age. With, you know, you go in and you're working at you're dropping fries into the oil, right? And
Sure.
That's an hourly. And
I did.
Yeah, I did that. And then I remember when I was working for myself the first time, and well, okay, so I was airbrushing T-shirts, and that was easy because it was a $15 design. I could be done with it in 7 to 8 minutes, and I made 80% of the $15. So, you know, what is that?
Sure.
$12. So I'm making $12 in 8 minutes. And
Right.
that just meant, okay, that's cool. So my output, I was really happy because I didn't have a ceiling. I guess my ceiling was how quickly I could work and how much work there was. But then, you know, when I went into the, you know, I don't know, the corporate world, I guess, and everybody wanted to know, you know, what's your rate? And then I did the hourly, and then I realized hourly wasn't cutting it and it needed to be per project. And now I'll have people ask me hourly, and I'll tell them, you don't want to know, because you're going to be unhappy when you hear it. And I'm not able to help you to quantify for you how quickly I work before we actually do it, and the quality that you're going to get out of that. So if
Right.
and rarely do I have people kind of go down that rabbit trail with me, but when they do, it's kind of a flag for me. It's like, I don't know that I'm the guy for them, or that they're the client for me.
Right. No, and I totally understand that and I agree with it. It just, yeah, because I can't, you know, at this point, because I've upped my rate now for, you know, I worked for Legacy Effects, Stan Winston Studio and Legacy Effects. I was there for 15 years. And I was at almost the same rate for that entire 15 years. I got one raise while it was still Stan Winston's studio, and I never got a raise after that. So I'd say for at least 12 years, I never got a raise. I also, there was other perks and things like that, but yeah, it's just knowing your own worth and when to ask for that raise, but yeah, since I've left Legacy now, I've upped my rate because it's kind of like, okay, now I have my own studio space that I have to pay for. I'm working for myself. So now, because I'm working for myself, I have to charge a little bit more because I still have the same bills that I have to pay, that I still had to pay 2 years ago. And it's like, so again, that quantification of, well, you don't want to pay my hourly, it's like, if you want something like this, like the Frankenstein head or like a Yoda, or if you want a creature costume for a film, and I tell somebody, it's like, well, that creature costume is going to cost $10,000, $12,000. Well, what's that hourly? It's like a lot. that's $300 an hour. You don't want to know, but it's like, I'm also paying other people to do this. And most people from film, they understand that. I mean, if you tell somebody, I need $60,000 to do that, more times than not, they're going to understand you're not doing this by yourself. I have to pay somebody to do some mechanics. I'm going to pay somebody to help me sculpt. I'm going to pay somebody to help me mold this. I might pay somebody to come in and do all the hair work on it or something like that. I can't do like a full creature suit unless you give me months to do it. It's like, I know we built this thing at Legacy Effects several years ago. It was all foam fabricated. I headed up the team, but we had, I think, like a 3 or 4 person team. And we got about 4 weeks to build this replica of the Bumblebee character from the Transformers, but like the old version from the animated series. And the same company that hired us to do it had found this cosplayer guy that had done like a Hulkbuster Iron Man costume, and they'd found them at Comic-Con, and they asked them, it's like, we want, you did this amazing thing, we need a Bumblebee, can you do that? Yes, I can. And I always kind of, whatever. It's like cosplay and having to build something for film or TV are two different things. Cosplay are people that do some amazing work, do incredible work, but they'll spread that out over a year or a half a year. But they needed this Bumblebee costume in 4 weeks. And I think we even cut it down to like 3. The guy that was asked if he could build that and said yes, he said he needed 6 months to do it. And it's like, well, no. We need it for South by Southwest. We need this for a commercial. We need it for like that. But we also know how to build the interior, the mechanics of it, and make it, somebody's got to be comfortable in it. They've got to wear it. It can't be heavy. It can't be bulky. It can't, and it's got to be relatively bulletproof. So it's like, it's nice that cosplay people are building such beautiful looking stuff. On the inside though, I don't want to bash cosplay too badly, but there's a certain way you have to build stuff for film and for TV. It really has to work, and it has to work for a 16-hour day, day after day after day.
It's a different craft, and it's a different industry.
Yeah. Cosplay is great. I mean, I love it, and I've learned a lot from people, just techniques and things like that. They're learning from me, but when I build a creature suit, I build it from the inside out. Somebody has to wear this. It doesn't just have to look pretty. It's got to fit. It's got to function. It's got to, because everything I build has to work on somebody. Like I said, especially for a commercial shoot or for a film shoot, it's like somebody's going to be wearing this for weeks on end, hours upon hours a day. They have to be able to sit in it, director's chair, or on an Apple box, or we've got to make a leaning board for them or something like that. So the complexity of it is just way more.
Well, and part of the working is also the working, right? Like there's so much more hinging on your suit for certain shots. And if something doesn't work, you're into tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
In production costs.
We were on a commercial. It was years ago. I won't say who, what, names, anything like that. Something was forgotten about, and it wasn't on my plate, thank God. But it cost the company I was working for a lot of money because something was forgotten about. Somebody, just they missed the mark. They didn't do what they were supposed to do, and it cost thousands, tens of thousands, because of this one little mistake that somebody forgot to build the thing. And we were scrambling at the last minute. It was that thing I talked about earlier, just grabbing into your kit, get the super glue, get the metal wire, get the thing, get the this, like that. And people are scrambling like crazy to build something. And it cost the company, I think, like $20,000. It's like, we missed a whole, and on a commercial shoot, usually when, commercials, it's like, that's one day. It's not like you're on a major feature film and it's like, we'll pick that up tomorrow. Let's, the AD, you talk to the ADs, and something always breaks. Animatronics in a head will break. In a creature suit, you'll get a rip. And it's like, we got to go patch this. We've got to do something with it. What we did on set just isn't good enough. We got to take us back to the shop, or we're going to have to do this overnight. And the first AD will explain this to the director. And they'll go, okay, well, let's move on to the next piece of business. Repair the suit. Let's try and get that shot after lunch. Let's try to get that shot tomorrow. Things like that. That doesn't always work even in films, because it's like, we may not be in that location tomorrow. So we're screwed, but on a commercial shoot, even more so, because you're in that location shooting that one commercial for one day. There's no tomorrow. There's no after lunch. It's like a commercial shoot is so planned out, storyboarded. This is happening at 9 a.m. This is happening at 10 a.m. This is blah, blah, blah until lunch. We take lunch from this hour to that hour. We need this twilight shot. We need this. That'll take us in the dark. That is so planned out. If you have something break, there's no after lunch, because they're on to a whole other piece of business. So you're even more prepared on it.
So you have left your full-time gig at a studio, and
Right.
you're not out of the industry. You're still,
No.
I know that you were saying you still go foam fab for people, but now you have your own show. So how has that transition been for you?
I mean, it's great, because I always did small projects anyhow. Even when I worked for Steve Johnson, when I worked for Stan or for Legacy Effects, anybody, I was always trying to hook some sort of little side gig. I was always like doing model kits or doing a maquette or doing some creature suit or something on the side in my garage. And then I would go to work for, 8, 9, 10 hours at Steve's or at Legacy or something like that. And I would come home and work for another 6 hours at home and build a creature suit. But at least now that I'm kind of on my own, and people are just contacting me, because of what I put on Instagram, what I put on Facebook, they're seeing what I do. They go and they check out my IMDb, and, they think, okay, here's somebody who's worked in the industry professionally. We're going to get professional quality, and, but for less, because clearly they're going to have a smaller shop or this or that. And it's like, of course. But so I've been sought out quite a bit, and I've put in lots of bids, and luckily I know how to do a bid. I know how to break down a script, and it's just a matter of like getting those numbers together, talking to the producer, when I worked at Legacy or at Steve Johnson's shop or anywhere else, I really didn't have the opportunity. I wasn't talking to producers and directors until we got to set. But now that's the only thing that's changed, is that I'm talking to them before we start building. It's like, well, what do you really want this character to do in this shot? What does this have to do? What are the limitations, or these are the limitations of what could be built, or, things like that. So you're negotiating all that up front. And then that negotiation turns into then the money aspect of it. It's like, okay, well, you wanted to do this much, so I can build this much, and this is how much that'll cost and how long it'll take me to build it. Whereas my employers in the past, they negotiated all that and then just said, hey, Ted, build this. They would hand me a picture and say, we need this in 2 weeks. And I go, okay, cool.
How has that transition been for you? the bidding part of it.
I love it, honestly. I mean, I've always enjoyed talking to the creatives, talking to the producers, talking to the directors, because I always was a filmmaker. When I was a kid in Wisconsin, I made my Super 8 films. We made video films. I edited and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I studied film. You know, I know the shots. I know, you know, this angle or that angle. And when you're on set, all these years that I've been on set, and I've been on set with some really great directors, and I look at where they're putting their camera. When I'm on a commercial shoot or a film shoot, I can stand over their shoulder because I'm manipulating the puppet or doing something like that. And I can throw my 2 cents in. You know, I can tap the first AD on the shoulder and say, hey, if we came in this direction, we could actually stand over here and the creature could do that. And they go, oh, that's great. Let's do that. Or they'll grab the director and say, hey, Ted just said, and that's been my experience on set, is that you're communicating directly with the creative people and you're seeing what they can shoot, how they can shoot it, and you get those ideas as well. I mean, I love that part of it. I'm a filmmaker. I'm not just a monster maker. I like helping come up with how are we going to shoot this? How is this going to work? Because I don't just willy-nilly, you know, make a monster. It's like, okay, here it is. And it's like, no, it's got to work too. It's got to function on set. You know, a camera has to get in there. A person has to interact with it. So there's a lot of different steps to just doing it. You don't just make a monster and send it to set. It still has to work.
Do you try and build in a wiggle room percentage on your budget? Because, you know, there's always something unexpected that'll come up, but then you also need to make a profit on it.
That's basically your wiggle room. And you hope that you budgeted that correctly. Is that, okay, you have to figure out your man hours. I'm going to spend so many hours and or days sculpting, molding, casting, the mechanics. Am I going to do the mechanics? I'm not really a mechanic. So, okay, I've got to hire a mechanic. How much is he? How long is that person going to have to work on it? You know, then I have to create the skins and paint them. And you figure out all that to begin with. You have to break all that down. Okay, so it's going to take me X amount of days and or weeks to produce this one thing. And then you figure out, okay, these are my man hours. What's my materials budget? You know, and you take your man hours and you kind of figure, it's like, how much are people making hourly? I mean, you can have people making anywhere from $25 to $65 an hour, you know, and up depending on their skill set. And, you know, some of those people are only going to work for 3 days. Some of them are going to work for all 3 weeks, you know, so it's like, okay, I'm going to have this person budgeted. They're $2,500 a week just for their labor. Set aside the fact now I have to buy servo motors and all that kind of stuff, or they do. That comes out of the mechanical budget. So now it's like, okay, I got to have $10,000 set aside for all of this kind of stuff. So there's your labor costs, your materials cost. And, you know, in that you figure how much am I worth? You know, I'm going to be working the entire 4 weeks. So how much do I make? And then that's where you put in your wiggle room. It's like, okay, let's say I'm, you know, just for easy math, I'm $100 a week. Okay, I make $100 a week. So there's my cushion. You know, most people might make $50 a week. I'm going to make 100. But then if I overspend here or there, my $100 goes down to $90 an hour a week, or, you know, $90 a week, then 80, you know, so you keep whittling that away and it's the less money you keep making. You know, it's like the last show that I did, they wanted the specific prop. Okay, I'm going to do this prop for you. It doesn't have to move. It doesn't have to have lights. You know, we're going to do this in post where this thing is going to reconfigure itself. It's almost like a transformer-ish type thing. And they said, don't worry about it. We only need this one. It's like, I took it on myself. It's like, I paid a guy to do the lights. And then I said, let's put a motor in there to spin this part of the prop. And I'm going to build another set of legs for this thing. So the digital connect is going to be easier for them. And so that's money I spent out of my pocket. So I talk about that $100. Okay, I just knocked it down to $90 because I personally said, let's spend $10 on that. For this particular project, when I said, let's spend $10, I basically was saying, let's spend $1,500, so let's just do that one little thing. That's a lot of one little thing. And that's not the only little thing that I just kind of gave away on that show. Number one, the prop was thousands of dollars. So I added a couple more thousand to it. Let's put in a motor. Let's put in some, and everybody does it. And you always kind of end up eating it a little bit, but hopefully you've padded your numbers enough that you're still making money, and that's the end of the day. I've talked to a couple of people, and they're kind of coming from that world of cosplay where they've got a 9-to-5 job and they enjoy building creature suits and cosplay costumes on the weekends or in the evenings and doing all that. And it's great. And I give as much advice as I can on how to build things. And I saw this one dude that I've interacted with a lot, and he's selling these muscle suits for $300. I said, how are you making any money on that? He goes, well, I do them pretty quick. I said, well, what's pretty quick? Well, I can do them in like 2 days. I said, okay, how much do you pay yourself? He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you're using upholstery foam, which is cheap. I mean, like for a sheet of upholstery foam, 1 inch thick, it's $12. So materials are cheap at that point. But then how many hours are you spending on this thing? You're selling it for $300. It's like, I make $300 a day, or did, over a year ago, that would have been my rate. So it's like, so if you're spending 2 days, you're down to $150 a day. Now you have to take your materials out of that. And how many hours do you spend on it? Is that an 8-hour day, or is that a 12-hour day? Or is that a 20-hour day? Now, I remember when I was at John Beekler's shop, I figured out 1 week what I made hourly because of the amount of hours I had put in. And I was at $250 a week, not an hourly. That was a salary. I was down to like $2.35 an hour.
That's
so,
wild.
I mean, you have to, and this guy actually kind of went, oh, and we started doing the math. And I was on a film set. I was actually in Georgia working on Goosebumps 2. And I said, what's your phone number? I said, let's talk. So I gave him my phone number. He called me right away. And I said, so listen, man, you're spending 2 or 3 days. You're charging people $300 for this thing. You're down to $100 a day that you're making to do this. And your materials are coming out of that. So knock 20% off of that right away. Now take your $80 that you're making a day and break down your hours. How many hours are you spending on that? Like 10 hours a day. I said, do the division. It's simple math. Dude, you're not making any money on this. You may as well, you'll make more money flipping burgers. And it's like, I understand it. You love it. You're having fun. When I worked for John Beekler for $250 a week, and I got to make monsters and creatures, and I can't tell you how many nights I slept overnight on tables with a furniture blanket pulled over me for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I'd get up and get back to work. I loved it. But after a while, it's like, I got to move to a new apartment. My rent just went from $400 to $800 a month. Now my rent went from $800 to $1,250. So you start stepping up like that, and it's like, oh, I need a new car. Well, my first car was $9,000. My second car was $24,000. The last car I bought was $35,000. It's kind of like, you got to start doing that math. You have to be worth more. If people are buying your product, you have to start charging more for that. And you're that product basically. You have to charge. Like, don't think of it as a hobby. If you're a cosplayer and you're able to sell your pieces, I've gotten a little bit of gruff from people because I'm doing this on my own now. I'm trying to bid on a couple of projects, and I'm thinking about doing a Patreon page. And there's so many people that said, well, why don't you just give that away? Why don't you just do a YouTube tutorial? Just do a YouTube tutorial. And it's like, I've been doing this since I was 9 or 10 years old, honing my craft. So this has been over 40 years, over 30 years professionally, but I'm just supposed to give this away. And it's like, I can't give it away because this is what do for a living. You
It's
know,
easy for somebody to say who hasn't put in the work, right?
right. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's just like, you know, the same thing for any kind of person who's at home doing like a cosplay type thing. It's like, and you're selling these muscle suits for $300. It's like, well, just give me one.
Right.
Just send one. You know, don't charge me for it. Why would you charge me for it? You're making those in a couple of days. You know, it's like, no, this is what I do for a living. You know, it's that added, people you see, the memes are all over the place about being an artist. It's like, no, I still have to pay bills and do this, do that, and, you know, put gas in my car and all that sort of thing. It's like, I love doing this, but just because I love doing it doesn't mean I have to do it for free.
Right. And nor should you. I mean,
Yeah.
Beekler was essentially your college.
Right.
You made little money and you were learning, and that was what you're paying your dues there. And, you know, go ahead.
No, it's 100% true. It's like you learn on the job. I came in knowing a decent amount, you know, just the basic skills. I knew the base skills, all this. And then when you started seeing guys that had already been doing this for like 4 years, 5 years, like I worked with Norman Cabrera, and, you know, he moved out here. He's a little bit older than me, but he had been working with Rick Baker when Norman, I think, was like 17 or 18 years old. And, you know, Norman's about 3 or 4 years older than me. And boy, that's all you need is an extra 3 years in this industry over somebody. And your skill set just wow, you're over the moon with what you know. You know, because I look at what I learned in my first 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then the people coming in, and it's like, no, why are you using that? Use this. Don't use that. Use this.
Yeah.
You know, you learn so much. But yeah, it's your college. That's your college.
Yeah. Great points.
And you never stop learning.
No.
I mean, there are constantly new materials. You know, I remember when Photoshop got introduced, working at Steve Johnson's shop and working with a fantastic designer, Konstantin Sakaris. And he was a guy that could sit down at a table and draw by hand, whatever. We're working on a Cat in a Hat at Steve Johnson's shop. He would have a picture of Mike Myers, and he would just draw Mike Myers. Just boom, there's Mike Myers. And then I'm just going to draw cat makeup over Mike. And then he would paint it, illustrate it, and then have this beautiful artwork, and here you go. And he was really resistant to Photoshop. He resisted, but then like Rick Baker started doing it, and somebody else started doing it, and everybody. Now Konstantin is like one of those premier, you know, like Photoshop, ZBrush, Maya, you know, like that. And watching all that stuff, you know, pop up, hardly anybody uses a pencil and paper anymore. You know, I broke down it finally. It's like got an iPad Pro, and just I have not put a pencil to paper in probably 2 years.
Procreate makes it so easy. Procreate, for me, it's like I don't use almost anything. If I have to go back to Photoshop, it's almost painful to have to do that. But it's wild.
I haven't tried Procreate yet. I did Sketchbook Pro.
Yeah.
And that I felt for me that was easier. So anything I've drawn lately has been on Sketchbook Pro.
Yeah.
I miss that tooth of pencil to paper. I miss that scratchy line type thing. So every now and again I'll do something. But
you can buy that. Did you know that? You can get a little.
I heard about that recently. I just, you know, but and I was never a painter. You know, I never did anything with color. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I love these layers, and then I can paint behind it, and then like layering my colors, and you know, but it's all these tools and tricks, and you know, you just keep learning. It's, you know, that's what's great about the art world in general. It's like, you know, there's always something new coming up. You know, all the stuff that we used in the shops, it's like I first started, it was foam latex. Everybody used foam latex appliances. Then it was gelatin appliances. A lot of people were doing gelatin. Then gel-filled silicone appliances. Then silicone appliances. Then, you know, now they're doing these Pros-Aid, you know, appliances. And everybody's using silicone. Hardly anybody uses foam latex for appliances anymore. You know, a few people do. But for film, it's almost entirely silicone. You know,
it just reads so well. It looks so good.
Well, yeah, it's beautiful. But now, there's makeups being done digitally. So, you look at Captain America in Endgame, the old captain sitting there. And it's like they hired an old guy. He sat there. He did the lines. Chris Evans sat there. He did the lines. They did the digital makeup, melded the two. He never had old age makeup on him. Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Not a lick of makeup on that guy. He had contact lenses and a little bit of makeup around his eyes, and that was it.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
The industry changes. You have to evolve with it, or you're going to be out of a job.
Well, and now it sounds like you're adapting into your own, obviously your own shop, but then we were talking a little bit earlier before we started recording about, you said there's these 5 things. I think I said it right. There's 5 things my wife and I are working on. You were talking about income streams, different income streams. Would you care to go into any of that?
There might be 10 things. It's a tree that looks like this. Unfortunately, being an artist, you've always got another idea. But yeah, I mean, we definitely sat and we talked about this. My wife, I met her at Legacy Effects as well. We both work at Legacy. And so we, she's a costume builder. She's a sculptor. So we have very similar skill sets. But now that she's away from Legacy, I'm away from Legacy, we're kind of on our own and trying to figure out what are we going to do. And I'm trying to express myself as an artist right now, using the techniques that I've always used doing the foam fabrication, which I'm really loving, because I'm building these great display pieces, like the Frankenstein or the Metaluna or Yoda or something like that. So that's kind of like my outlet for art. I get to do my thing there, or doing my drawings. But then I've always been interested in the Halloween, Halloween in general, just as a holiday, I've always loved. But I've always been into Halloween props and, doing things of that sort. And I must have like 100 designs for Halloween items. So I'm working on those designs and want to try to get that going. My wife just started a business, just honestly at the beginning of the week. She's been working on it for a few months, developing the product, developing the material that's going to be used for the product. And she finally opened up her shop, and she's doing really well with it. But that's another one of those branches. And, the thing that we keep saying to each other, we can't chase too many rabbits, let 10 rabbits go in a field. You can really only chase one. And I'm trying to find that one right now to chase. I'm enjoying doing my art and sharing it on Instagram. I share it on Facebook, and I'm getting a lot of followers. So that's fun, but that doesn't make me any money, and I have to have income. So now I've thought about trying to do a Patreon type page where I can actually do tutorials and show people what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and teach them, because a lot of people seem very interested in learning how to do this. And I don't feel good about just throwing it up on YouTube, because again, I have to make money doing this. And if it's through a $2 a month Patreon or a $5 a month Patreon and people come and watch me, then that's great. And I can share my skills that way and still have an income. So I've got the Halloween stuff. I've got this that hopefully I can sell as an art piece, so I've got my artwork. I've got my Patreon that I'm trying to work on. I've got my Halloween stuff I'm trying to work on. And there's like other avenues as well. It's like, yeah, it's a tree with many branches, but I have to just focus on that one. I can only chase the one rabbit at a time. So I'm going to try to get one of these things working to a point where it's self-sustaining, and then I can go away from it, still have it, but now I can focus on this other thing, because this is up and running and moving and the gears are moving well. And then I can start concentrating on another avenue, because none of these are, no one thing alone is going to create my one salary for the year. It's like I might make $9,000 off of this for the year, but this might make me $10,000 or $20,000 for the year. And so if I start combining all of these, it's like, okay, now I've actually got an income that I can survive on, type thing. So it's finding that right branch to hang off of, or that right rabbit to chase, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
in the meantime, I'm still bidding on film work. So
Well, and that's like your go-to, right? Like
yeah,
so yeah, what you're doing sounds brilliant.
no, it's a natural progression. I mean, I'm not an old guy. I'm not ready to retire. I'll never retire from building this stuff. So I mean, hopefully at a very old age, I'll drop dead making another Frankenstein. It's just like, you know, 94 years old, I'm just going to fall over into a pile of foam. It's fine. You know,
Into a pile of foam. I like that. They're going to be like, they'll walk around and go, hey, look what Ted made. Oh,
it's
no,
like,
it's Ted.
oh crap, it's Ted. Yeah. Spray some glue on them, coat them with rubber, done.
Finally get in front of the camera, right?
Exactly. No, it's just, you know, I'm a young guy. I can't retire. So, I mean, I don't have kind of money. I don't have, you know, I've got to create an income, and I just got to find that next one. You know, the film industry has gotten difficult. It's different. It has changed in the last 30 some years that I've been in it. And I'll be honest, it's just not as fun as it used to be. You know, there was a different mentality, and it has turned into such, I mean, it's called the film business, you know, the film industry for a reason. It is a business. It is an industry, but it's more of a industry than it's ever been before, where it's just like, you're just cranking out this stuff week after week after week. You know, some of these projects we had at the last shop I was at, where it was just like, we used to get a year to build this stuff. We used to get 6 months to build this stuff. And it's like 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Everything was 2 weeks. Some of the stuff was 3 days, 4 days. And it was just like, how are we supposed to do this? I mean, 3D printing and 3D modeling has made some things easier, but it's like, you know, we're literally like, there were things that were coming off of the 3D modeling beds that we were pulling off, breaking off, sanding like that, spray painting, sticking on, and taking it to set. You know, and it's just like, that's just not the way to work.
Yeah.
You know, there's no such thing as pre-production anymore. Nobody does pre-production. You know, most of the films that are being shot right now don't have finished scripts. They don't start with a finished script. They have multiple drafts to start with. The script changes so drastically and dramatically throughout the entire shoot. You know, I've certainly worked on films where they don't have an ending for it yet. They don't know exactly what's going to happen throughout the entire film. You know, pre-production's gone.
Yeah.
You know, that's where you used to, I had a visual effects guy tell me on a fairly decent film I worked on not long ago. And he said, my God, he said, have you just had pre-production on this? He said, most of my VFX budget could have gone to you guys. You guys could have built this stuff and had people in costumes, which would have been cheaper. But now we have to do all of this in post. He said, so now we have to do all the VFX, all the digital, all of this, and the approval. Like he said, just because they kept pushing it. And it's like, okay, we're shooting in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't have a finished script. You know, you haven't approved certain VFX things. You know, the practical effects that we were building were barely done. And, you know, we got those to set so quick. But yeah, it's just because there's no pre-production. And I don't understand why people aren't doing it anymore. Because it saves you in the end. And I don't know if they don't want to see the money going out of the bank account before the film even starts to roll. If it's a psychological thing, it's like, well, why would we pay people for 3 or 4 months before the film even starts to roll? And it's like, so that you can have shorter shooting time, less post-production. You know, it just makes sense from our point of view. I don't know.
Well, it's hard to make decisions, right? And then the buck stops with you. And if you don't like what you decided on, then you're kind of committed to it. And
yeah, I mean,
it's easier to just kind of blow in the wind.
We've kind of giggled over the last 10 years or more, 15 years even, where it's like, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
You hear that, and it's not even a joke on set anymore, or it's become a joke. We'll fix it in post. It's like, what about that thing? We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it. And they just pay for it, you know, in post-production, because they didn't think about it. They didn't realize, like, Yeah, we'll fix it in post. And they spend thousands, tens of thousands, if not millions on some big films. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. Well, as I'm wrapping up here with you, I guess I want to ask you, what piece of wisdom would you like to pass on to the audience of artists who either want to make a living from what they do creatively, or they are and they're looking to make like a sidestep into their own business? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it's research number one. You know what you're getting into. In so many aspects. You know, if you want to be a makeup effects artist or a creature effects artist or a visual effects artist or anything like that, know who did this stuff before you. You know, don't come in, as I've heard so many times, you know, makeup effects guys that they get out of some school or something like that, and they come in, they don't know who Dick Smith is, they don't know who Rob Bottin is, they don't know. It's like, know who came before you, but then know your craft. You know, don't come in with such a small skill set and think that you're going to be in charge. You know, be humble. You know, it's like, you're going to learn from these people. The more humble you are, the more questions you ask, the more people in a shop experience are going to be willing to take you under their wing. You know, there's a lot of people that came into the industry where they know everything. I don't want to work with them because they don't know everything and they're not going to listen. And there's a lot of people, more people that came into the industry where it's like, why are you using that tool? It's like, oh, well, because this tool cuts a little bit better than that tool, or like that. And you're, oh, can I try that? Yeah, here, you know, like that. And those are the people I want to work with, that are more inquisitive, that want to learn and want to listen. So it's like, know your craft, but also know your skill set, I think. And it's really hard. I know it's super hard for an artist to know how good you are. You know, are you a good artist? Can you actually illustrate really well? Can you actually sculpt really well? And you have to know that difference between, it's like, I'm going to look at something I've done versus something somebody else has done. You know, I'm going to sculpt an Iron Man helmet. You know, nobody sculpts that anymore. It's a bad example. Let's say I've seen sculptures people have done of Rick Baker's Harry and the Hendersons, you know, or a zombie or something like that. It's like, okay, take the best zombies you've ever seen out there, you know, something that was like premiered in Walking Dead. And now look at a zombie you've done. It's like, is it really as good as that? Is your Harry and the Henderson sculpt as good as that? Is your, and it doesn't have to be immediately, but know how good you are and know where you need improvement. You know, don't think that you're always the best. You may be super good, but you know, just be humble about how good you are. Someone's always better. I look at my work and then I'll scroll through Instagram and go, oh crap, there's some really good stuff out there. And I'll like it, and I'll, you know, say to somebody, hey, I really like that piece of work that you're doing. And they'll go, oh my God, Ted Haines just said that he dude, your stuff is way better than mine. And it's like, your stuff is better than mine. And we do this back and forth type of thing. It's like, no, I've been looking at yours. It's great. Kind of know where you are, but then know your worth as well. You know, if you are a good artist, you know your worth. You know, don't settle for less. You know, when you first start out, yeah, you're going to have to eat it a little bit. You know, it's like, well, I can't go in at $30 an hour. They're going to pay me $22 an hour. You know, maybe, but it's like, you know, guys like you, guys like me who've been doing this stuff for over 30 years, and people might go, why are you worth $50 an hour? Why are you worth, you know, this? It's like, because I've been doing this for over 30 years. You know, and it's like, you have to come up through the ranks. You have to pay your dues. Everybody has to pay their dues. You know, it's a big thing in the industry is to be able to puppeteer something. You know, you get into the Screen Actors Guild, you get those benefits of residuals and being in SAG, being in that union, getting your health benefits. Dude, that took me 15 years to get into that. you know, and I watched guys that were puppeteering on Jurassic Park and puppeteering on this film or that film and making incredible residuals. And it's like, I didn't get it until 15 years in. So it's like, you can't be 4 years in and going, why am I not getting it? It's like, you got to pay your dues. I'm sorry. Why can't I go to set? It's like, that person's better on set. You know, they've been doing it a long time. So we'll send them to set, and then they get to take 1 or 2 people with them. And next time it might be you. But be patient, be humble, but again, know your worth. Stand up for yourself when you know you need to stand up for yourself. You know, ask for that raise when you know you really need that raise, or you deserve that raise. You know, maybe you need a raise, but maybe you don't deserve that raise. You know, but be that guy or woman, guy in a general term, man or woman, you know, but be a person that is worth giving that raise to, you know, or worth giving that, you know, we will give them $30 an hour instead of $20 an hour. There all these questions you have to ask yourself, and especially as an artist, because it's such a horrible thing to get feedback. You know, don't be afraid to ask, is this good? What do you think of this piece of artwork? Like, and be prepared for an honest answer. You know, I always try to be honest. I don't try to belittle anybody. I try to be honest. It's like, you know, this is what I really appreciate and like about your work, but you could push this a little bit more. I think you could, you know, so being an artist and be critiqued by other artists is really difficult. And then putting yourself out there. I mean, me doing this, you know, potentially how many people are going to see this? And it's like, Ted Haynes is full of crap. You know, it's like, Ted Haynes' stuff is terrible like that. And it's like, you know, there's going to be people that say that. And it's like, some of them will be right, some of them will be wrong. I mean, it's all subjective. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm full of crap. Maybe what I'm making isn't that good. You know, maybe other people are way better. But you have to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to ask for what you deserve. You know, because that's the thing. It's like, you know, I keep on people that still know me from back home in Wisconsin. And it's so brave of you, you know, that you moved to Los Angeles, that you got in your car and, you know, I had my back seat filled with Fangorias and blue jeans and T-shirts. And it's like, that's what I moved to LA with. And it's like, it was so brave. It was so brave. And I said, it's not brave. I was so naive. I was so stupid to think that I could go to LA and just, hey, here I am, LA. Here I am, film industry. Hire me. I very luckily got in and have not stopped working since I moved out here. But that was through persistence, you know. It's because I had a skill set. I was persistent. You know, I certainly had a humble quality, at least when I started. I don't know if I do anymore.
I'd say it's humble.
You know, it's just like, you know, but you have to be persistent. And the thing is, had I never moved out here, had I stayed home, I would end up being, you know, a school teacher perhaps, which is a great vocation because my parents were both school teachers. My sister's a school teacher, you know, but that's what I would have done. I would have been a school teacher. I might have opened up a video store. And what would I have done then? I would have ended up watching movies that potentially I would have worked on. You know, I can't imagine like sitting in a video store watching From Dusk Till Dawn or, you know, Wyatt Earp or Captain America or, you know, Endgame and going, oh man, if only I could have worked on those. And then knowing now I worked on Endgame. And I can brag and say I am the last person to ever have put Robert Downey Jr. in an Iron Man costume. You know, I got to be there for that, as opposed to me sitting at home as a 52-year-old man watching Endgame going, man, I wonder who put Robert Downey in that Iron Man outfit. You know, it's like, if you don't take that first step, if you don't take that leap, you know, and you might miss a couple of times, that's fine. You can miss a couple of times, get back up, make the leap again. And if it's just not for you, it's not for you. But, you know, you have to try. You got to at least try those first few times. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for everybody. I got extremely lucky. I was really persistent. I was not going to move back home. I was going to keep working. there was 2 times in my career that I was just like, man, it's just money is tight. Or, you know, that first time I had no money, you know, but there was a second time where it was like, I'm a single dad. I've got a small child. I've got a big mortgage. I've got lots of bills. I might have to call this quits. But I just kept on, you know, and all of a sudden something would happen. I'd get a job. This would happen. Money would start coming back in again. And it's like, it's okay. I'm glad I didn't do it. You know, but it's I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's great advice. I think, you know, something that we all should remember is that whether we're pursuing our dream career or not, there's always going to be lean times, and then there are going to be some, you know, mountaintop experiences.
Sure.
So you're going to experience them either way. It just depends, you know, how committed are you? How determined are you? How persistent are you? How humble are you? Smart are you? How, you know, what are all the skills and the characteristics that you bring together that are going to help you succeed? And I mean, you know yourself better than I do, but I would say, I don't think you were lucky. I think you worked hard. I think you knew what you wanted to do, or at least had an idea of what you wanted to do, and you paid the price to do it.
Right. No,
So,
and I appreciate that. And I mean, I've heard that from friends and family where it's like, no, you're not lucky, man. You're really talented. And it's like, I appreciate that, but I also know what's been given to me.
right.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I understand. There's other people that could have been hired for my position. There's other people. I always go back to John Beekler, Mike Deacon at that shop. There was 2 guys there. It was me. I was a fresh hire, and there was another guy who was a fresh hire. And my name's Ted. The other guy was Tim, I think it was, something like that. And John always used to get us crisscrossed. And he said, I got to get rid of one of those guys. And he said, get rid of Tim. And Mike Deek goes, which one's Tim? He was the guy with the really long blonde hair, which was me, really long. But he said, the guy with the long, like that, get rid of him. He goes, that's Ted. He goes, you would be nuts to get rid of Ted. He goes, he's the hardest worker. He says, blah, 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 like, and he goes, oh, okay, then get rid of the other guy. So I mean, that was kind of, you know, because John didn't remember our names or wanted to get rid of this guy or that guy. It was a 50-50 thing. Had John gotten rid of me at that point, I don't know where I'd be, because it was not a time where I was brave enough to go knock on another door.
Yeah.
You know, but
it's cool that you had an advocate in Mike, that he knew how hard you worked, that I mean, you had built some kind of equity with him. That's cool.
Right. There was 2 guys. It was Mike Deacon and John Foster, who was Beekler's kind of foreman there.
Yeah.
And they both knew me. I got to know them. They were good friends, and they were my advocate. Absolutely. And then John, you know, he only had to make that decision once. He kept me. And again, I just kept leapfrogging from one shop to another. And I got to a point where, you know, nobody looked at my book anymore. I'd go in and they'd talk to me. Well, what'd you work? Oh, okay, you're coming from K&B. What'd you work on over there? And I'd bring my book out, and remember Steve Johnson just flipping through my book and going, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So anyhow, yeah, we got this Bicentennial Man thing coming up. Do you want to work on that? And it was like, yeah, sure. When I got hired at Stan Winston's, I was brought in because I'm a fabricator, muscle suits, doing all this kind of stuff. And the head of fabrication at that time, Amy, do you know another person that can do this work? Oh yeah, I know the guy. Let's call Ted, bring him in. She called me. I came in, signed some paperwork up front, and started working. And one of the coordinators there, Alan Scott, he came in, oh, good to meet you, and, you know, shook my hand, and this is what we're working on. Here's the drawings, all this kind of stuff. 2 weeks later, I asked him, I said, so do you want to see my book? And he goes, no. He goes, you've been here for 2 weeks. What, did you work for Steve for 6 years? I said, yeah. He goes, I'm like, do you have it here? Do you have your book here? Do you have your portfolio? And I said, yeah. He said, I'll look at it later. Like that. So it's just kind of like you get to a point where people aren't even asking to see your work anymore. They just know that you're. He was like, oh, I've heard about you. You've been around. He said, you've already been working here for 3 weeks. So he said, there's your work right there. You're doing a good job. Fine, whatever. So.
That's
I
awesome.
haven't shown my portfolio in 20 years.
Hey, thanks so much for your time, for your
Oh,
insight,
of course.
and just really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks again, Ted, for being my guest and just for the wealth of information that you shared with me and with all the Breakthrough Creative listeners. Uh, if I could just point out a few facets here that really jumped out at me. First off, Ted's optimism and enthusiasm is infectious. Man, the guy is just somebody that I'd like to hang out with and get to know better and better. He just is such a good guy. And I can only imagine how good of a guy to work with he would be and a friend he would become if we had had that opportunity. So that's huge when you're working with people, when you're in a work environment and you've got somebody who is agreeable, optimistic, more than glass is half full kind of a person. I guess there could be a lot of laughter. I don't know. Is that glass half full laughter? Maybe. But a glass half full kind of person, man, when days are great, those people are great to be around. When days are long and tough, they're even better to be around. They're great for morale, and it just makes the hard stuff that much more palatable to go through. The second thing is man, the guy's work ethic. Like, get in there, figure out how to do it, and get it done. I love that that's a part of who he is. And that's obviously why he's been successful everywhere he's gone, because he's somebody that you just don't have to keep managing him. If you're working for somebody or you're subcontracting, if somebody's hiring you to do work for them, the reason why they're hiring you is they don't want to babysit you. They want you to be able to do the work that needs to get done. And, nobody wants to have to micromanage someone. So this is why you really need to be a self-starter and figure out how to make yourself valuable to your employer or to your client. Okay. Otherwise, why are they going to keep you around? They just won't. And it makes life that much more fun anyway, because you're learning things, you're doing new things, and you're really, really a positive part of growing something for a client, being involved in the project. Really, really important stuff. And maybe the third thing that really jumps out at me is that Ted found a niche. He found his specialty. He was really good at fabricating foam. He didn't even know what it was called, right? When he went out to LA and got hired the first time. Do you work this? Oh, you're a foam fabber. And he's like, what? Oh, okay. I guess that's what that's called. So it's good to have a specialty because that is probably your foot into the door wherever it is that you're going to go. So I wonder, do you have a specialty? If not, maybe that's something that you need to work on, along with just a great attitude and being somebody that you would want to be around, and also being a self-starter. All three really, really important facets of a career and a service to whoever it is that you're working for. So, Ted, thanks again, man. You rock. It was so awesome to have you on. And it's going to be good to get to know you better. And hopefully we'll check in with Ted again down the road as he grows his new business. And then upcoming, the Breakthrough Creatives guest next week, in keeping with our Halloween theme, is Bart Mixon, an incredible makeup artist. Like, Lon Chaney was a man of 1,000 faces, and I think that Bart Mixon has probably done close to 1,000 makeups. I mean, maybe I'm overstating it, but if you take a look at his credits on IMDb, you're going to see this dude has worked on everything from kind of low budget horror movies in the 80s. Really got his big break, I would say, on RoboCop, doing the makeup on Peter Weller for I think it was 86 or 87 was RoboCop. And he did Tim Curry's makeup as Pennywise in, I believe it was the 90s version of it that was like a mini series that they did. I think it was ABC. And today, he works on makeups like on the Orville, making up characters. He's worked for Rick Baker over the years, working on Men in Black. So, I mean, I could just go on and on, but you're going to want to hear his story and how he works in the industry. It is a great interview. So, with that being said, I'm John for the Breakthrough Creative. Would you give us a follow? Either if you're watching this on YouTube, will you subscribe to us? And share it with somebody that you think this show will benefit. If you're listening on the podcast, will you please, if you're on iTunes, leave us a good rating, and if you could leave us a good review too, or a review just to let people know what they're listening for, because my goal is to help artists to realize and be encouraged that they can make a living doing something creative. So with that being said, I'm going to encourage you to get out there, get to work on doing something creative that you love to do, and figure out a way to make some money with it, okay? Cheers. See you next time.